Hello and welcome back to Perspectives, bringing you our daily dose of news and views we hope are relevant to you. Just to let you know, today's show will be the final one of the year, as James and I are taking just a short break for Christmas to rest and recuperate after such a busy year. But don't worry, God willing, we'll be back on Monday, the 6th of January, to resume a new year of bringing you the truth of what's going on in the Sikh community globally. So for the final show of the year, we have an important announcement that could have an enormous impact in the democratic battle to establish Khalistan. More on that shortly. Aiding and abetting that, of course, Gurpatwant Singh Pannoon also lends his fiery hand as he threatens action over the coming days. And December is, of course, an important month in the Sikh calendar, and we'll cover some of the key messages the month brings for Sikhs around the world. Well, joining me as always for Perspectives is our very own correspondent in Canada, James Cousineau. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Angus, and good morning to our audience out there. Once again, as Angus covered, we are going to take a little break, so we wish you and your family the best of this Christmas season and have a great and safe New Year.
Indeed, and James and I together will be bringing you our perspectives on the daily news affecting the Sikh community across the world. And of course, as usual, we'll take a final look at loads of you great comments for the year, which have been filling up below the video, so thank you as always for those. Right, James, let us get things underway. What are you going to talk about this morning?
As we covered there, we are looking at Christmas. Later tonight, Santa will be making his way down the chimneys, and hopefully all the boys and girls will be sleeping so that he can leave some presents under the tree. But as this is a significant holiday for most people around the world, it is also marking a very important month within the Sikh calendar. Now, this is a month in which they honor many of the martyrs and the gurus that have been significant throughout history. Now, I wanted to just kind of cover that because we don't get enough coverage in the Western media that really draws the importance of December to the Sikh people, and I thought that was an important thing to do. And in honor of that, I'm also going to go over the just a quick and brief overview of each of the 10 gurus. And with that, we hope that we bring a bit of education to our non-Sikh audience because, again, this show is about education, awareness, and bringing people together. And we hope that over the last year we have done that. As Angus and I spend time with our families over the next week, we hope that you take the opportunity to really show appreciation for those who are around you and take a moment to really appreciate those who are not only here now, but have had a significant role in our lives, in our world of years past. So once again, we will start with a quick video that will kind of give a brief overview as to why December is important in this calendar, Angus. And of course, we know why it is for us celebrating Christmas. But again, we are all about sharing information and sharing our knowledge as we learn it and come together as a community. And again, that was just a brief video that I saw on Instagram, so I'd like to thank the poster for that. But again, it represents what December means for the Sikh calendar and those who practice Sikh religion, and also for those of us around the world who have benefited from the Sikh people, who are always there to encourage equality and really there to help the world as they come together, or when they are separated through crisis. The Sikh community is always there to lend a helping hand and to help those in need, and that is a principle of Sikhi. This one here that I'll bring up next just talks about the martyrdom of both princes of the 10th Guru, and we'll talk about that. And that is Prince Zorawar Singh, and I'm going to ruin this name, so I'll call it Prince Fateh Singh. The first name I don't want to be disrespectful and mispronounce. But they are the sons of the 10th Guru who were murdered by the Mongols back in 1705. And they are honored in the month of December. And that is of significance because of the fact that they went out, although young, they were young warriors, and they fought and they tried to really stand up for themselves and for others. So this here is the introduction that some acts and deeds are so profound that they change the course of history. One such is the martyrdom of the 2 younger sons of the 10th master of the Sikhs, Guru Gobind Singh Ji. The young and innocent boys, Prince Zorawar Singh and Fateh Singh, attained martyrdom on the 26th of December in the year 1705, when they were brutally murdered by Wazir Khan, the Mughal governor of Sirhind. The month of December has special significance in the Sikh community. It was in this month that the combined forces of the Mughals and the small hill principalities used perfidious deceit to draw out the Guru Gobind Singh, his family and followers from the Sahib fortress and sought their destruction. These forces, under Wazir Khan, promised the Guru safe passage from Anandpur Sahib, but attacked them with overwhelming numbers when they came out, along with their grandmother, and that was Mata Gurjar Kaur, got separated from the main contingents as they left the fort. They were promised refuge by an old retainer named Ganju in his native village of Sahidi, but were handed over to the Sirhind administration of the Mongols in what can be termed as the worst possible breach of trust and faith. So again, it shows that these youngsters really were innocent, and they were just, deceived, the whole family, including the Guru, and they were basically just persecuted there right in front of the crowds that stood idly by and allowed it to happen. And when you look at it being just a horrific incident when they kill a Guru, but also to kill his young children, I mean, it's just unheard of and unthinkable in today's age. But it was, again, back in 1705, and they were threatened by the Sikh people, who were very strong, very compassionate, but they also promoted equality, even back in 1705, to bring all people together in a safe and harmonious community. And of course, the different religious facts and the persecution of Sikhs has been going on for, hundreds of years. And we still see it today in some regards with the announcements or the prevalence of transnational repression with foreign interference. So again, we really see a lot of the sadness that still continues, but with the advancement and the eventual, opening of a new country called Khalistan, we hope to see that will bring about a lot of peace and a lot of safety for Sikhs around the world, but especially in their homeland of India. With that said, I have another video, and it is not in English, so I hope that you enjoy it. It still is a great video with just the music that brings together the story as well as the visuals. And I think that even though you may or may not speak the language and understand the words, you will understand the message, which I thought was of most important this December, folks.
क्यों अपने दुश्मन आप बन गए हो बच्चों? हाले भी थोड़े कोल वक्त है।
हाले भी थोड़े कोल वक्त है काजी साहब, अपनी जिद छड़ दियो, नहीं तो इस धरती ते डुल्लिया साडा खून एक दिन जरूर रंग लेके आएगा।
की रंग ले आएगा? इत्थे थोड़ी याद विच कोई महल बन जाणगे? चला दो। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੀਵਾਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਚਿਣਨਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰ ਦਿਓ।
एक ओंकार सतनाम करता पुरख निर्भव निर्वैर अकाल मूरत अजूनी सैभं गुरु प्रसाद जप सच जुगाड़ संजोग विजोग दुर्गा चलावे लेखे आवे भाग आदेश दिसे आदेश आद अनिल अनाद अनाद जुग जुग एक होए एका माई जुगत वे आई
ਜੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਆਏ ਸੀ ਪਰ ਦਾਦਾ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਣ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ।
ਜਿਵ ਤਿਸ ਪਾਵੇ ਤਿਵੈ ਚਲਾਵੇ ਜਿਵ ਹੋਵੇ ਫਰਮਾਨ।
पवन गुरु पाणी पिता माता तनु महत दिवस रात गाए गाया खेले सकल जगत
सोच लवो, हाले भी बहुत कुछ हो सकता है।
चंगियाइयां बुराइयां वाचा कर हदूर करनी आपो अपनी के नेड़े के दूर जिनी नाम ते आया गए सकत काल नानक के मुख उजले केती छुटी नाल।
ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੋਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਾਹਰ ਕੱਢੋ।
ਇਹ ਦੋਵੇਂ ਤਾਂ ਹੱਲੇ ਜਿਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਖਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ।
So as you can see from that video, you can take with that the emotional, just the drawing of that. And once again, that was courtesy of one of the local gurdwaras here in Surrey, British Columbia. Now, I'd also like to draw attention that during Christmas Eve, of course, that being today, we're going to be at 5:30 p.m. on my personal account. I do a 2-hour live every year, and essentially what I do is read different stories that are to do with Christmas. I'll have a screen behind me where we track Santa as he travels the globe, and this year I'm going to actually bring in a couple of Sikh stories that I'm going to read about the history and about these, about the 10th Guru and others, and really celebrate December as a part of the Sikh calendar, as well as bring that into the Christmas theme. But mostly it is about just really sharing a live event with the audience, so feel free to join me on that, Angus. It is a wonderful time of the year. It looks like we're going to have lots of rain and wind here in Vancouver. I don't know how things are looking on that side of the pond for Christmas, but hey, maybe a miracle will happen and we'll see some snow, but I'm not counting on it.
I think our weather forecast for Christmas Day, James, we're going to be, I think, 14 degrees here, so we could be outside barbecuing our turkey by the sounds of things.
There you go. Well, I definitely won't be seeing any barbecuing going on around here, but I'm looking forward to having family together and celebrating with a beautiful Christmas dinner.
Indeed. Well, yeah, that was an interesting summary, and of course the 10th Guru, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, he was, of course, one of the key founders of so many elements and so many principles of modern day Sikhi that does, of course, echo down the centuries even today. And he was, of course, the founder of the Khalsa, that most important of groupings. And he was, of course, the establisher of the 5Ks, which, of course, we talk about on a regular basis, because likewise, all Amritdhari Sikhs are beholden, shall we say, to the 5Ks. Of course, that has generated a lot of stories that we've covered in the past. He also did establish many of the key moral principles of Sikhi that, again, still echo down the centuries. Whether it was tobacco, banishing tobacco or alcohol or whatever. But he also, as part of establishing the Khalsa, he did, of course, initiate not just the original 5 members of the Khalsa, the Panj Pyari, I think it was called, if I remember correctly, but he also was responsible for initiating women into the Khalsa as well. So, again, we often talk about equality, and Guru Gobind Singh Ji. He had a very large part to play in all that, James.
Absolutely, Angus. And as you can see, as we talk here, we've got the 10 gurus here. And for those who, again, are not very versed on the Sikh religion and the gurus, I thought I would just do a quick overview of each one so people can understand that. And just to give that honor as we are in December here. Guru Nanak Dev Ji, of course, from 1469 to 1539, the founder of Sikhism, emphasized the oneness of God and rejected social divisions like the caste system that we talk so much about, Angus, all the time with our show. He also introduced the concept of Langar, which, of course, you were honored to enjoy when you were, I believe that was when you were in Arizona.
Arizona, it was.
Community kitchen. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I said it was Arizona. I had a very enjoyable Friday evening enjoying Langar.
Excellent. So, and they opened up the community kitchen, promoting equality and selfless service, traveled extensively to spread his message of peace and love. And what is Christmas and this time of year without peace and love and sharing that message? So, I mean, it just transcends not only the religious borders, but just the international borders of peace and unity. Guru Nanak Dev Ji from 1504 to 1552 developed the Gurmukhi script, the script used to write Sikh scriptures, and furthered the teachings of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And of course, we see that still today. And his name, of course, honors the or graces the presence of many of the Gurudwaras. My tongue is tied tonight. It must be getting late. Angus, on my side of the pond. Guru Amardas Ji, from 1479 to 1574, expanded the Sikh community and organized it into distinct congregations and championed the rights of women that you were just touching on, Angus. Guru Ramdas Ji, from 1534 to 1581, founded the city of Amritsar, which we know well in terms of a lot of the stories that we cover and how important the significance of Amritsar is for the community. And of course, that represents the holiest site of Sikhism, and we cover a lot of stories that unfortunately mark the history of Sikhism at Amritsar. Guru Arjan Dev Ji from 1563 to 1606, back when I was a kid. Okay, maybe a little further back. Compiled the Adi Granth, the Holy Scripture of Sikhism. Excuse me. Built the Harmandir Sahib, the Golden Temple in Amritsar. And again, we talk a lot about that. And martyred by the Mughal Emperor Jahangir for his faith. Once again, the repression of the Sikh culture, the Sikh religion, and the Sikh people. Hargobind Ji, from 1595 to 1644, introduced the concept of Miri Piri, temporal and spiritual power, and emphasizing both spiritual and worldly responsibilities. And again, we see, as I say over and over, how much the Sikh community gives of themselves around the globe in times of need. They also established the Sikh army to defend themselves, and they are known as very, very defensive, or I should say very skilled warriors who are also leaders in the history of other militaries, including the British, the Canadian, and otherwise, where they were seen as fierce fighters, but also amazing leaders. The Guru Har Raji, of course, from 1630 to 1661, emphasized the spiritual pursuits and maintained a peaceful stance, and continued to strengthen the Sikh community. Guru Har Krishan Ji, from 1656 to 1664, became a guru at a very young age, known for his wisdom and his compassion. Guru Har Krishan Ji, I just said that one. Guru Teg Bahadur Ji, from 1621 to 1675, sacrificed his life to protect the religious freedoms of both Sikhs and Hindus from the Mughal oppression. So you can see that even going back to this date and time, the Sikhs have stood strong and stood side by others to protect them when they were in need. And that includes the Hindu community, which I thought was very important to emphasize given today's global climate, geopolitical climate, and of course, the division that some are trying to place between the Hindus and the Sikhs, and really to bring that together in the fact that they have stood side by side for centuries. The Guru Gobind Singh Ji, from 1666 to 1708, he founded the Khalsa, a warrior brotherhood to defend Sikhism and uphold justice. And again, this is going back to the 1600s and 1700s, that they fought for justice. And again, it wasn't only about fighting for justice for Sikhs, but for anybody. So they really brought that to light. He also introduced the 5Ks, which were the Kesh, the Kanga, the Kara, the Kacha, and the Kirpan, which we talk a lot about, which are just amazing symbols of the Khalsa. And it is also important to note that the Guru Granth Sahib is considered the eternal guru in Sikhism, following the Guru Gobind Singh Ji. Again, this was just a very brief overview, and my apologies, I got a little tongue twisted there, but it's all good, Angus, and I hope that brings a bit more information, knowledge, and awareness to all of our viewers as we are about to celebrate an amazing holiday season to end off 2024. We thank all of our viewers for being with us on the journey this year, and we look so forward to starting off 2025 very strongly. And don't forget that, Angus and I, the only gift we need are for you to keep your comments coming in, to keep your support, and also to share the channel with others so we can expand our audience as the new year approaches. I've noticed that our followers are kind of at a stalemate right now, so we would love it if you're able to share our channel and to invite more in so we can see those numbers go up before we come back in January, Angus.
Indeed, and stay tuned until the comments section, because we have a commenter who suggested ways that more of our Indian audience might be able to access our channel, but more of that in a moment. But no, thank you, James. Thank you for that summary of the 10 gurus. Fascinating, and of course it is of course fascinating also looking back at history and how a religion has been established and then evolved into what it is today. And of course, after the 10th Guru, then became the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, that the scriptures that are so obviously revered and form such a fundamental part, and they of course are eternal, which actually was a very, very, very sensible thing to do around a very volatile time in history. because, of course, trying to maintain a living guru down through the centuries is, of course, I would say, a bit of a challenge. So then to essentially convert it into the written scriptures does mean that the message and the philosophy, the central philosophy of Sikhi becomes eternal. It's written down forevermore. So, and it is, of course, practiced and followed by so many tens of millions of Sikhs around the world now. And December, as you rightly said, is indeed a very important month for the followers of the religion. So, as you said, James, our best wishes and goodwill to all our audience as we approach this holiday season. But no, that was a very interesting summary, James. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Right, let us move on then, and I'm going to start with quite a big announcement, actually. This is exclusive, I'm happy to say, for Satluj TV. And I'm going to introduce, I would say, a very good friend of Satluj TV. He's a gentleman who I've interviewed on several occasions over the last couple of years, and is a very powerful, very influential, but also a very decent, good man. And it's always been an absolute honour and a pleasure for me to talk with him, both on and off camera, and of course meet him in the flesh on several occasions. And this gentleman, he is an American businessman and a former US congressman. He represented Arizona's 8th congressional district for 14 years, in 2003 to 2017. He's also a member of the Republican Party, and during his tenure, Trent Franks, who I'm referring to, served as Vice Chairman of the US House Armed Services Subcommittee on Strategic Forces. He was a Chairman of the US House Judiciary Subcommittee on the Constitution, Civil Rights and Civil Liberties. So he's got a huge background and a very senior, influential position during his time as a congressman. He actually achieved an awful lot during his time in Congress. He's also no stranger to India, or the issues that, of course, are currently raging between the North America and India itself. He, as a man, is a passionate defender of human rights. He's a former chairman of the Religious Freedom Caucus when he was as part of the US government. He was also a senior member of the US government's India caucus, which took him to India itself, allowing him to meet then Prime Minister Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Now, Trent himself is a practicing Christian. He's a man of deep conviction, and his focus during his time was not just promoting religious freedom in India, but also ensuring the basic human rights of religious minorities in India and ensured that they were respected. Now, Trent has made a video, and I'm going to follow this video with more information about this. But just have a look at this video. This is Trent Franks, Congressman Trent Franks.
Well, good morning to everyone. It is such an honor for me to be here and to join this board of directors of the Khalistan Caucus Foundation. You know, when I was in Congress, it was my privilege to be chairman of the Religious Freedom Caucus, because it was then, and it still remains, my fervent conviction that religious freedom is the foundation of all other human freedoms, and that without religious freedom, all other freedoms will eventually fail. The core ideal of the United States of America is that all of us here and across the world are created equal, and we are endowed by our Creator with the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And seeing this sacred ideal realized for every member of the human family has been the preeminent commitment of my entire public life. And we're gathered on this particular morning to shine the light of truth upon the history of the Sikh people, who have so often been denied these basic rights of religious freedom. Theirs is a story that is vital for the whole world to hear. And it's still one that remains largely untold. It's the story of a noble and fervent people who have found themselves unfairly caught up in the machinations of empire building on more than one occasion across the pages of history. So many promises made to the Sikh people across the years have been summarily broken, and they have been oppressed, persecuted, and desecrated for so long. But thanks to some of the individuals in this very gathering, the world is now becoming aware of the injustice the Sikh people have endured. I believe Sikhs, like all other religious groups, have the right to religious freedom. They have a right to peacefully advocate for their own homeland and to openly educate their own countrymen as to the rich and noble history and the culture of the Sikh people without fear of violence from any government. Ironically, what was first just a reasonable request for more autonomy and religious freedom in Punjab has now grown into an independence movement, largely because of the heavy-handedness of the Indian government. Now, I personally believe the Sikh people deserve their own autonomy and independence. But I'm also convinced that at the very least, a strong majority of the American people, as well as the people of the world, still hold religious freedom to be a sacrosanct human right. And I believe the more the true story of the Sikh people is told, the more the world will come to believe, as I do, that they have earned and deserve autonomy and independence. In the meantime, I would call upon the Indian government to unequivocally recognize the religious freedom of all of their people, including the Sikhs. India claims to be a nation of religious freedom, and I genuinely want that to be true. Unfortunately, I have personally witnessed the vestiges of the Hindu caste system still lingering in some of India's practices towards some of their own people. And I think this brings a special scrutiny to the examples of the transnational killing of innocent Sikh individuals based on their political and religious beliefs. We have a special responsibility to examine these and other vital issues very carefully, especially when there's a history of past human rights violations, as has been the case under the current and many previous Indian governments. I believe it is vital for the governments of India, America, and human governments all over the world to understand that their core strength as individual nations is grounded in recognizing this fundamental human right of all people to be free and to worship as they choose. God help us all to embrace that immutable truth.
So very, very powerful words from Congressman Trent Franks, and I think the significance of this statement cannot be understated. Is that Congressman Franks is an extremely powerful figure. He's got an enormous amount of experience. He's also got an enormous amount of influence at US governmental level. He also knew Joe Biden, worked alongside Joe Biden. So, he's moved in the right circles. So what Congressman Franks has announced here is that he is joining the board of directors of the Khalistan Caucus Foundation. Now, this is enormous. So the Khalistan Caucus Foundation has 21 board members, most of which, we can't reveal who those board members are in detail for obvious reasons. But the fact, and of course it's not surprising that most of those board members, and even I don't know the full list, but I'm assuming it's likely that most of them will be from the Sikh community. But now to have a congressman, a US congressman with such an enormous influence and such an enormous presence on that board of directors lends a huge amount of not just credibility, but an enormous amount of weight to the foundation. So what actually is the Khalistan Caucus Foundation? Well, in summary, I'll just give you a quick sort of overview of what it officially represents. Again, I can't give too much details away at this stage. But it exists to assert that Khalistan is not only a viable aspiration, but an essential foundation for regional stability, justice and self-determination in South Asia. So this is its mission statement. Khalistan stands as a response to India's shift towards authoritarianism, marked by its exclusionary policies and marginalisation of minorities, and offers a democratic alternative grounded in Sikh values of Miri Piri, that's the balance of spiritual and temporal governance, and Sarbat Dabala, that's the welfare of all. An independent Khalistan committed to justice, inclusivity and community welfare would embody, of course, unsurprisingly, these principles, establishing a governance model that uplifts the region, champions minority rights and counters the authoritarian impulses pervading much of South Asia. As India aligns more closely with the BRICS countries and embraces policies that increasingly diverge from democratic values, Khalistan offers the United States and, of course, its allies a reliable, ethically grounded partner to support a balanced Indo-Pacific. So in that mission statement, it's setting out just how important Khalistan will be, not just for spreading and establishing basic human rights and a moral code of humanity embodied into a single nation, but it also sets out the strategic advantages and the strategic benefits for the West. Of course, the whole of the West, the whole of the democratic world will benefit from the establishment of Khalistan. This is why Congressman Franks has lent his weight and has joined at a very public level now as a board member of the caucus. He has joined this because he understands just how important the establishment of Khalistan will be for not just the Sikh community, but of course the world as a whole, the democratic world particularly. And he did refer to, in that video, he talked about how the movement has evolved from just a basic demand for human rights and just a little bit of autonomy to run their own affairs locally in the Punjab. But because of India's authoritarian rule, because of India's basic, simple bullying, persecution and oppression against the Sikh community, because, of course, as we often talk about, they perceive the Sikh community as they realise it stands up to injustice. They realise they stand as an existential threat to their very existence and their control, the Brahmanical control of India. And this is what Khalistan will represent. It will represent an autonomous, self-governing, sovereign nation, a homeland for the Sikh nation. And it will stand as a beacon for human rights. Now, the caucus, the Khalistan Caucus Foundation, what is it itself and what is the purpose? Of course, we've talked about its mission statement, but its practical purpose runs more significant and more practical, more pragmatic than that. The purpose will be to take the Khalistan discussion to a more diplomatic level in the United States. It's a lobby organisation to aim for that end goal, which of course is a free Khalistan. The foundation will be open to take advice from all Sikhs living in various countries, and as a minimum, a 5-member committee known as the Khalsa Panchayat from each country directly connected with the Khalistan Caucus Foundation Secretariat at Washington, D.C. So, as we've often talked about, the Sikh Federation exists to coalesce, to unite and to filter down into one single voice, the voice of the Sikh community. The Khalistan Caucus Foundation will coexist with a similar role, a similar raison d'etre, to form a powerful voice, a united front, a united voice for the whole Khalistan movement, particularly, and it is of course US basis. It is designed to exist in the United States at a diplomatic level. It has the connections and likewise, of course, through Congressman Franks, it now has the power and the connections to be able to speak into the ears that need to hear this message in the United States government. And of course, as the Trump administration takes power next month, it now has this powerful organisation, this foundation with many key members, many powerful members within the community, and of course now bolstered by Congressman Franks. This powerful committee, this powerful organisation now can speak into those ears of the US government because they sit amongst it now. They know the right people, they have the right connections, and they can send this very powerful message into the very heart of the United States government. They can talk at the same level and they can explain in very clear and unambiguous terms why Khalistan is so important, why it's important just for basic human rights and the establishment of a better regime in that region in the Indian subcontinent, but also, more importantly, for the West and for the democratic world, why Khalistan will stand as that most important beacon, that most important central part of democracy within the Indian subcontinent. Trent often talks about how, sadly, the Indian government are moving away from a democratic principle of governance more towards a totalitarian system of governance. That is why they are aligning more with the BRICS economies, the likes of Russia and China. It is very important then that people in the region are given an alternative, a democratic alternative. If they don't wish to fall into totalitarianism, as India is going, then they are offered an alternative in that region. Khalistan will stand in that region as a relatively small geographic location, but in terms of its heart, it'll be an enormous beating heart of democracy in that area. It will be a country with its borders open to all who want to live under that democratic, benign regime, that regime that will follow the rule of law, that will follow the principles of Sikhi, which means that it sees all their fellow human beings as equal. Men, women, whatever their background, whatever their religion, whatever their creed, whatever their beliefs, all people, all human beings are seen and treated as equal under Sikhi, and that is how Khalistan will be governed. So James, this is a very, very significant move. It's a fantastic move for the Khalistan movement. It proves also that the Khalistan movement isn't just supported by, of course, those within the Sikh community itself. It is supported by many others. Even James, you and I stand testament to the fact that this message that the Khalistan whole sovereign movement stands for extends beyond the Sikh community. It extends to all of us who live in the democratic world, because we all believe in democratic principles. We all believe in human rights. We all believe that everybody on this planet has the right to live under a democratic governance, should they so choose. Everybody has the right to free speech. Everybody has the right to choose those who lead them and under what governance that they live and under what rules they live. Those are the principles of democracy. That is what Khalistan stands for. So I think this is an enormous announcement. It is exclusive to Satluj. We're delighted to bring it to you. Well done to Congressman Franks, and it is an absolute, as I say, an absolute pleasure and an honour to know Trent Franks, and likewise to have him present on our show. James.
Absolutely. Excuse me. And yeah, we had a bit of a technical issue, but I'm back. And I would just like to say, yeah, as more and more people in today's world are understanding what Khalistan represents and what it can bring to the table on the international stage, I think that we can see a very positive future for Khalistan, for the referendum, and for the support of the Sikh people. Now, let's go into 2025 with the positive outlook that things are going to only get better from here, Angus.
Indeed, we look forward to a new year, and who knows what this new year will bring. But as I say, the movement towards Khalistan and the establishment of Khalistan has just taken an enormous step forward. All the pieces are moving into position. All the pieces are in the right place now to move this legally and democratically and peacefully forward, which is fantastic. And we hope that the new year will bring equally significant moves towards that end goal. Now, of course, the Khalistan movement covers many areas, and it covers many different types of support. And of course, it is, as we often report, a very multilateral approach, and there are very many different parts of the community that support Khalistan, and they do it in their own way. And of course, one of the more unique ways is our old friend Gurpatwant Singh Pannoon. So just quickly, as we are running out of time now, but I'll just want to quickly cover Gurpatwant Singh Pannoon's latest video. Now, Gurpatwant he's come out fiery as always, and I'll be disappointed otherwise. And his latest video is now really upping the ante. And he's announced that over the coming days, and particularly on December the 30th, we've talked about how he's targeting the Russian embassies and ambassadors. Well, December the 30th is going to be a bit of a significant day for him. And in this latest video, he has what he says Russia has declared an open war against pro-Khalistan Sikhs and farmers. And what he's done a couple of videos recently, actually, which we haven't covered, but he's now recently talking about how Russia is aiding India with supplying what he calls chemical grenades, basically tear gas. So he's actually claiming that Russia is supplying tear gas grenades to India that are now being used on farmers in the Punjab and, of course, on the Shambu border, where the farmers are currently protesting. And he claims that these tear gas grenades have resulted in multiple deaths and blindings. Many people have lost their sight, sadly, because of the actions of the police on at the protests on the border protests. So what he has said, on the 30th of December, Sikhs for Justice is going to, what he calls, seize Russian ambassadors and embassies to internationalise the Sikh farmers' issue and expose India's use of Russian chemical grenades, as he calls it. In Ottawa, in Canada, Sikhs for Justice will seize Ambassador Stepanov, the Russian embassy and the Indian High Commission. Likewise, simultaneously in London, he will seize Ambassador Andrei Kellin and target the Indian High Commissioner Vikram Doraiswamy. And in Washington, D.C., he will target Ambassador Quatra, who he calls the face of Hindu terror in Washington, D.C. And he does refer to the India-Russia terror nexus in this video. Now, what he doesn't make clear here is what does he actually mean by seizing the ambassador and the embassy? I don't think he means literally he's going to seize and abduct the ambassadors and literally take possession of the embassy. I think this is more rhetoric. I think this is more of his typical rhetoric, and I think partly he's probably lost in translation. I think what it basically means, my interpretation of this, is that there will be protests. His supporters will protest outside the embassies in London, Washington and Ottawa, outside the Russian and the Indian embassies, to send a very, very clear message to these embassies and to the ambassadors themselves about the fact that the Sikhs for Justice and, of course, all his supporters do not tolerate and think it is an evil that Russia is joining in this battle against the Khalistan movement and joining and assisting India. He calls it, as he says, this is a war zone now. Embassies and staff are going to face off pro-Khalistan Sikhs. So again, more fiery rhetoric from Gurpatwant Singh Pannoon, but it does form, as I say, it does contrast very, very strongly with the story we talked about with Congressman Trent Franks, and I think it does highlight the fact that the Khalistan movement will be successful, and it will be successful because it is supported by all, or certainly most people within the Sikh community, right across the community, and the community goes about it in their own particular ways, and it can only happen by this multilateral approach. It will only happen through the legal, the democratic and the peaceful movement, and that movement takes many forms. It takes a form at a very high level through, as we've talked about, Congressman Franks and those within the community who are approaching this at the very highest governmental level. And of course, we talked about the United Nations and how the Sikh organisations have approached the United Nations to present their case legally. And of course, in terms of the legal regulations and the international law and how they will go about it to explain why Khalistan meets all the obligations of international law for it to be established. But likewise, it needs people like Gurpatwant Singh Pannoon to drum up the public support, to make the public more aware of how important it all is, what it means at a basic grassroots level. And this is what Gurpatwant Singh Pannoon is very good at with his rhetoric. I often talk about his message is very clever and it is very intelligent, and people should actually listen to what he says, because as I've explained on many occasions, what he says is actually very, very cleverly put and very intelligent rhetoric, despite the way it's displayed. And it is very easy to sort of almost sort of say it's very dramatic and very comic. But it does actually, it has that very clever effect of appealing to a very large audience. And of course, it appeals to the younger audience as well. It is appealing to a certain section of the pro-Khalistan community. And that is why it is very effective. Because the legal and the democratically political side, let's call it, appeal to, let's say, the more higher echelons, the more academic elements of the Khalistan movement. And likewise, sitting alongside that, Gurpatwant Singh Pannoon and his supporters, his co-workers, appeal to another section of the Sikh community who are more, let's say, more aligned to that method of, let's call it propaganda, let's call it supporting material, whatever you want to call it, choose your words. Right. But they sit very comfortably alongside, because we need this multilateral approach to ensure that the whole of the Sikh community understand what it's all about, and then they can understand the message that those leading the forefront, leading the vanguard of this movement are sending to them, James.
Absolutely, Angus. And as you stated, it's probably within the context of the translation. But it's important to note as well that the movement is peaceful, it's democratic, and it moves forward. And that's how it gains so much support that it's seeing in today's world. And I believe that when he says that they're going to do these things, I'm sure that it means in protest and by standing outside and making their voices heard. But I do think it's dangerous to really not emphasize that, because of the fact that today's day and age, especially with the younger crowds, they could misinterpret what's being said there quite easily. So I think it's important for everybody to understand that it's a peaceful process, and that it doesn't mean to actually physically take possession of individuals or the buildings and facilities. So.
Indeed, and in fact, the response from India has been actually quite predictable. The Minister of External Affairs, Randir Jaswal, made the following response. Let me just play this for you.
Yes. As and when such threats are issued, we take them very seriously, and we raise it with the U.S. government. In this particular case also, we've raised it with the U.S. government, and it is our expectation that the United States government will take our security concerns seriously.
So, unsurprisingly, the Indian government are sort of saying, look, we do take these threats seriously, as he calls it, and we appeal to the US government to take those threats seriously. Because, of course, Gurpratap Singh Pannoon has used very deliberate, provocative language. I think he knows exactly what he's saying, and he knows just how to push India's buttons. And I think this is a classic example of Pannoon in his typical way, just deliberately pushing and provoking those Indian buttons, knowing that he's going to get this sort of response. And of course, the US government, I'm sure, will be watching this very closely. I don't believe these protests will be violent in any way, shape or form, because Pannoon knows full well what the law is in the United States. He's trod a very careful line where he's just pushed things right up to that line, but he never crosses that line because he knows he's a lawyer himself. He couldn't afford to break the law because he wouldn't be able to practice in the United States. So he knows very, very well where that legal line is. He won't cross that line, but he's very shrewd. He's very clever. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he does it just to provoke just this sort of response from India. So, okay, James, in the interest of time then, let us move on to our final comment section of the year. And as always, loads of wonderful comments from our wonderful supporters. So thank you as always for those. So let's start off with TC, one of our regulars. Excellent work, James. This was you doing your seva, your selfless service for the community with your brother. So well done for that. Loads of positive comments, loads of supportive comments, James, for that. So well done for that. And we talked about cybersecurity breaches. Just out of interest, TC asks, is the targeting of Sikhs at airports misguided? Should such interrogations be extended? Well, this is a good question, and I think we talked about, one of our big stories we talked about recently was, of course, targeting Sikhs going through security. It's particularly here in the UK, they are quite often taken aside under Section 7 of the Terrors Act. And so the question is this targeted at Sikhs? Is this specific to Sikhs? And why aren't Muslims, I think the question was raised, why aren't Muslims interrogated and taken aside at the same level? Well, I would actually say, I don't know for a fact, but I suspect they probably are. And I think known people or people who are flagged up on their internal systems as they travel through our airports and ports probably are taken aside under the same act. And as I say, I am a big supporter of our intelligence services and our security services, but I have highlighted this potential abuse where I think political directions have come from higher up down to our frontline border guards to say, look, I think you need to target people from the Sikh community, and I think this is where this has come from. Is it misguided? Yes, I do believe if this is genuinely happening, and it does seem to happen, I think it is misguided. I think it's actually appalling that many innocent Sikhs from the community are taken aside. There is a very fine balance that our security forces have to tread. I don't envy their job. It is an extraordinarily difficult job that they have to do in respecting simple basic human rights, but at the same time trying to maintain the safety and security of our borders. So, it's a tough one, this, James, and I suspect border forces across the world, including Canada, have this same issue. It's very, very difficult to get it right.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at a lot of the border security here in Canada, a lot of our guards and such at the airports are private security. But regardless as to what they are in terms of private security, TSA, municipal police, national police, whatever the case is, they have, as you said, Angus, a very delicate balancing act that they have to use in order or in the name of national security and international security. So again, I don't think that it is focused solely on the Sikh community. I think that they are looking at all areas, and unfortunately it just happens to be that the Sikhs are caught up in it. But there is a line, I think, that is being crossed with the level of information that is being requested, especially when they bring up Khalistan within the context of a flight security or just travel for vacation and holidays. I think that there is a line there that is being crossed.
Yeah, and ultimately the security forces have to err on the cautious, because it only takes one slip, one mistake to let somebody through that could have dreadful consequences. So that unfortunately they do have to err on the cautious on that. And in fact, myself, I've been I've suffered this myself, but I've travelled to the United States hundreds of times over the decades. And when I started becoming involved with Satluj TV, even earlier this year, recently travelling to the United States, I was taken aside and I was interrogated to an extraordinary level. I've never experienced this before, and it's only happened since I got involved with Satluj TV. As I entered the United States, I was interrogated, and I won't give too much away, but basically I believe it is because I'm now involved with doing what I'm doing. And of course, they know, and in their own intelligence databases, they know now my connections within the community. And so, yeah, I have been subjected to this to myself. So, but I, as a white Englishman, was pretty astonished by this. And I say, look, guys, I'm English. I'm just an English journalist. But because I have now been associated with the Sikh community and, of course, the Khalistan movement, is that I now myself am sadly subjected to a similar type of scrutiny. So I do sympathise. It's a tough one. And you do talk then, have the Sikhs ever had any run-ins with the Russians, if what's being said is true? I don't know is the answer to this. And, well, Gurpatwant Singh Pannoon, as I've just talked about, certainly has his opinions about Russia's involvement in the Sikh movement. And then, as you finally sign off, you say, in this age of Kali-Yuga, let's not forget who actually has the final power. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. And of course, yeah, we all face our final judgment as we pass on this world, as we leave this world. All of us do face that final judgment, no matter what happens. So I think that is a very powerful message to sign that comment off, James.
Absolutely. I had to mute my mic because it's actually picking up the rain hitting the roof of the office here. Welcome to winter in Canada. But yeah, no, absolutely. And it's just a matter of just trying to be patient and working our way through it, whether it's at airports, whether it's at, the docks and ships. But just remember that at the end of the day, if you get to your destination safely, that is the biggest priority for all of us.
Indeed. Amar Khaira talks also follows the same theme. We talked about this comment that came in the other day about somebody, I think it was the same person, said that travel agencies were asking Sikhs who wanted to travel the same sort of questions about what are your opinions on Khalistan, etc. Well, more info in here from Amar Khaira. Thank you for this. I asked my friend who told me about it, and he said he was asking his questions because the travel agency were making sure he won't have any delays on his visa. It was an agency in Coventry, that's in the Midlands here in the UK. So this particular agency probably asked his questions because they are aware of the problems as they are in a Sikh populated area. Now this is interesting actually, because this does actually put a little flesh on the bones. It's likely, and we've talked about recently, that India is weaponizing visas. Because, of course, it knows that to grant visas to people who want to come and visit family, particularly from the Sikh community, anybody from the Indian diaspora who want to return back to India usually have to apply for a visa, particularly if they're resident in other countries like the UK. And of course, they're weaponising this, saying, no, if we don't like you, we're not going to grant you a visa, which means they're cutting these people off from their families, from visiting their family members. So this is what's been happening. So yeah, absolutely. I think this is likely that travel agents are now realising what's happening, and they're asking Sikhs, particularly in the community, their involvement, particularly in the Khalistan movement, because they're trying to highlight the fact, look, if you are high profile, if India knows about your involvement or your activities or your activism or your any anti-India activism, then this may affect your possibility of getting a visa. So yeah, absolutely, James. I think this explains why travel agents may well be asking about people's general opinions on Khalistan and any anti-India sentiment.
Yeah, and it's always good to get clarification and understand the reasoning behind such actions. So yeah, it definitely goes a long way to explain or shed some light on that.
And sadly, I think it's very unlikely, James, if we apply for an Indian visa. I think it's likely what our response will be if we apply for an Indian visa.
I think they'll give us one, but it'll be very short-lived after we arrive.
Yeah, I think we may find ourselves as cellmates of Amrit Pal Singh in Dibrugarh. It's quite likely. So. We'll be able to do a one-on-one interview with Amritpal Singh. So there's a silver lining to every cloud, as they say. Now, Lewis makes it very clear, James. It is not Punjab, it is Panjab, we have been told.
Not the first time, Angus, and I'm sure it won't be the last. But hey, the bright side is it'll be the last this year.
Thank you, Lewis, for that one. It is indeed, I guess, Panjab as opposed to Punjab. We'll try and get it right every time, so apologies if we slip up. Now, Pritam Kurman made several actually very good comments. I just picked this particular one. It talks about the British taking the side of India. We do talk about this a lot. Why is the British establishment so aligned with the Indian establishment? Well, you claim that if they take the side of India, if we examine this too closely, it really will open a can of worms. The British caused the division of Punjab, of course they did, but of course it was the Indian government that then divided it once again after that and gave a portion of the Sikh Empire to Pakistan and the balance distributed to India, and then divided the states according to the population census and languages spoken. And then you talk about the Constitution Act, how it was involved, and then we had the 1984 British involvement in that dreadful attack on the Golden Temple, that dreadful kidnapping of the final Maharaja, the young Maharaja Dilip Singh. So there was no heir to carry on that empire, and of course Queen Victoria and her representatives in India at the time brought that final young boy, the final Maharaja, back to the United Kingdom and feted him, made him a member of the aristocracy in return for not promoting the continuance of the Sikh Empire. England has all the artefacts of the Sikh Empire, including the original Sikh Sri Guru Granth Sahibs and other texts of the Sikh Gurus. Now, I must confess, I didn't know this, and I must look into this. So thank you, Pritam Kaur Man, for this. I must, James, look into this fact. And I do know that in many British museums, of course, we have, sadly, it's slightly embarrassing to admit this, but we do have many artifacts from around the world, from all sorts of religions and cultures around the world. And we are often berated for this fact. I didn't know, in fact, that we had the original Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. James, we were talking about the scriptures earlier on, the 11th Guru, the final Guru, which of course takes the form of these scriptures. I didn't know that the British had possession of this. I will look into this, and I'll probably have to make another public apology in the new year, James.
Well, and you've just been given your homework for the holidays.
Indeed. So, but thank you, Pritam Kurman, for your comments. You make some very interesting comments. Now, James, this is a comment I referred to earlier, and I've anonymised the person who sent this. Thank you for sending this email. In fact, you sent it a few days ago. Apologies, I actually haven't had time to include this in the comment section, but thank you very much. You know who you are who sent this. You explain, and we've talked about this regularly, how to watch Satluj TV in India. If you follow the channel, click your account in YouTube, click on Settings, click on General, then click on Location, then select any country, for example, the USA or Israel or anything, and start watching, James. Now, we have talked, somebody very kindly suggested, I think on your mobile phone or your device, I think you can change the settings on your device itself.
That's right.
But this person has actually said if you go into if you follow the channel and then you go into your settings on YouTube itself, you can change your location, which will then release Satluj TV. It means you can watch us in India. So please go out there, tell everybody, spread the word, spread the message that you can watch Satluj TV in India, James.
Absolutely, and you got to spread the word before they close this video off.
Indeed.
But yeah,
to make it your New Year's resolution. If you're in India, a New Year's resolution, go tell at least 10 others around you to go and do this and watch us in the new year in 2025. Thank you very much indeed for our contributor who sent that in. And our final set, Jura Rai, again, one of our regulars. Great job, James. This was another appreciation of your saver, your selfless service, James. Well done for that. Loads of supportive comments on that.
And always appreciated, but it's all about giving back to the community that allows us to, operate businesses and just be a part of it. So it's really, a thanks to the community for all that they do in supporting the works of the food bank. So.
And Gurpachan Singh says, thanks us for bringing out what he calls, or he or she calls out, it's a he, I beg your pardon. Gurpachan Singh, yes, says, thank you for bringing out India's dirty business and explaining word by word to your listeners. God bless you for being so honest. Well, thank you for that lovely message. Yes, we do air India's dirty business because India won't do it itself. Unfortunately, as we often say, India does not have an independent press. Here in the UK, in Canada, North America, across democratic nations, our press are on a regular basis always airing the dirty laundry of our governments because they are allowed to do so. Our governments hate the fact, but that is what you get in a democracy. That is why, for example, we at Satluj TV exist, to be able to air India's dirty laundry. Sadly, we have to do it from a real democratic nation, or nations, Canada and the UK. Because if we did this from India, you know what would happen to us? We would end up sharing a jail cell with Amritpal Singh, James, would we not?
Seems to be the theme of the show, Angus.
It does indeed. And again, and likewise, Jagtar Singh Johal. Indeed, Jagtar Singh Johal, who sits in a jail cell, a British citizen who did exactly this, who aired India's dirty laundry. He himself spent years researching the dreadful events of the 1980s and 1990s in the Punjab. Look what happened to him. Sadly, he is now residing in an Indian jail cell because he did that very same thing, India's dirty business. So, Gurpachan Singh, thank you very much indeed for your lovely comment. And it does highlight, I think, very clearly the fact that we living in a democracy can do this, but it is sadly in India, those who do try to do this in India, you know what happens to them. So it's a very sad indictment of India, and it no longer can claim itself to be a democracy. And Greywell, again, another one of our regulars, claims that we are his favourite show. Love it always. Thank you, Angus and James, from the bottom of my heart. Well, I would like to say, from the bottom of my heart, thank you to you, Greywell, and thank you to each and every one of our listeners and our audience out there. Thank you for your lovely support, your wonderful support, and your continuing comments, James. I'm sure you want to say the same.
Absolutely. We appreciate every one of our viewers out there. And you'll see sometimes on the comments, I try to go through and just give a thumbs up or whatever, just to let you know that I've read them. So again, even the nasty comments, I may put a thumbs up just to let you know I've read it. Not necessarily that I agree with your comment, but just to let you know that I appreciate you taking the time to share them.
Indeed, and the final comment of the show, and indeed the final comment for 2024, comes from Gurmit Singh. Best show ever. Please broadcast from Khalistan soon. Great show. Well, thank you for that. I don't know if we are the best show ever, but we do our best in our own limited way. But certainly, we do hope to be able to broadcast from Khalistan soon. I think that our story that we talked about today of Congressman Trent Franks joining the battle, joining this fight, this peaceful democratic fight for Khalistan, means that we will take a massive step forward. And we certainly hope that one day soon, James, we will indeed be broadcasting our first show on behalf of the Khalistan Broadcasting Corporation from the capital of Khalistan itself.
Absolutely. And we will definitely bring you along so you can see the journey to get there and the journey when we are there, because we know that the Sikh people have spent a lifetime and several generations for that moment. So we can't wait to be a part of it.
Indeed, and on that note, we will bring things to a close, but we have to say, on behalf of James and myself, thank you so much to each and every one of you in our audience, particularly our regular audience, our regular commenters, but each and every one of you who have been there throughout this year supporting the programme, who've helped us really achieve the limited heights that we've got to, but we have got there. And it is a slow, steady path that we're treading, but we're getting there, like the Khalistan movement, and it has been an honour and a privilege for James and I to join in this wonderful movement, and hopefully with that end goal of establishing the sovereign nation of Khalistan. But each and every one of you has played an enormous part in that journey that we are on, and you've played an enormous part in educating James and I ourselves in our journey on learning what Sikhi is all about and the wonderful humanity and the benign message that the Sikh philosophy brings to the globe and the world and humanity itself. So thank you once again for watching Perspectives. Thank you so much for supporting us in 2024. We will be back on Monday, the 6th of January, as we enter 2025 with a new set of shows. We look forward to seeing you there. Please do join us. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Do have a peaceful and a wonderful end of December. Enjoy the rest of the year. We hope you and your families have a healthy and a prosperous new year, and we look forward to seeing you in January on January the 6th. But in the meantime, it is a goodbye from me, and it is a goodbye from James.
Stay safe, everyone. Happy New Year.
You have, of course, been watching Perspectives. We will see you, God willing, in the new year.